Now we are starting again with part two. Part one got a little bit discombobulated. Well, part two got discombobulated. So we had to bring this back to you. And we're going to wait 1 second here. Okay. All right. We are set to go. Part two got discombobulated. I apologize. Had a little misconception here. I told a solution for reparation. Uh, what we saw a couple of days ago on the 15th of Juneteenth, an anniversary day, couldn't have been any more misrepresented by a conglomerate group of people that were just pulled together to represent. And they did not represent. And I would like to say that I know that Mr. Coates is documented as being a writer. I want to give him his prompts and outstanding work that he's done, and how he tried to hold his own in that room. And Danny Glover was really off into some color purple discussion. And Mr. Hughes, I want to apologize for what he represented there. It sounds like somebody was coercing him and giving him the prompts and two thumbs up to say what he said, because he really, really didn't do his homework. And I would like to say that I would like to see a real group of people come together to talk about a nation, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why I'm back on this evening, to talk to you about a nation. We really need to present a nation to the United States and the public at large, other overseas country. Our Native Americans and indigenous people have have told the case with the United States government about their treaties, and I'm very proud of how they have met the march, uh, and pressed on, and they have stood their ground. And I have to say, if we are to look at anyone as a mentor with how they have handled Mr. Informer, we would definitely like to say that my headband is too tight here. Okay. I would definitely like to say that we are going to give them credit where credit is due, because the Native Americans, in spite of the fact that they have their own language and that they may have come in a little handicapped in that area, they've done a fantastic job in presenting to Mr. Enforcer what they're entitled to. I think we as African American, with all the BDDs and the PhDs and the EDs that we have behind our name, all the schooling that they've given us, okay? Not to say that it's replicable and it's commendable, but to say that we should have enough background to present an audience. And I'm not saying that we want any of Mr. Force's people, enforcers on our team. We want to present this ourselves as African American, and we can do this. This is a final draw where, up until this point, everything we've ever learned should be to demonstrate how we can set precedents about what real reparation looks like. Now, I had explained to you that because of the massive imprisonment, and because of the low wages that the African American men have been producing, they've been working for a little bit of nothing. All those corporations who benefited from African American men working cheap labor will have to put something back into reparation. And you know who you are. It's not just pressing license plates, but big corporation where African Americans are working for low wages in prison. Okay. And I already told you about the insurance man who have been writing these big policies for these recipients who had insurance on their slaves. And after beating them to death, they recouped the benefit off the policy. Every one of those insurance men are held accountable to pay something back to reparation. Not to mention all of the fabric shops who benefited from all of the cloths and the cottons that they reproduce in their apparel, working with all sorts of garments. So, garment shops and seamstress shops and tailors, all of these companies are going to be held responsible for putting something back into reparation. And when we get a little bit from everywhere and get on someone's payroll, that's right, because the banks that we held and held, our mothers and fathers held dear to their heart, where they put money in the Freedman Bank, it was stolen. I don't know if you know this or not. The gentleman that was managing the Freedman Bank, he loaned the money out haphazardly. He gave some away. He depleted every dime in that bank. And Frederick Douglass came along and thought he could make things better with his $10,000 deposit. But it did not help any. The bank still had to go under. That bank could have been recouped, and those African Americans could have been paid their money back. Do you know that no one was indicted? No one was held in contempt of court. No one even went to court for that disillusionment. That is a disillusionment of a business that through a reparation process, they thought they were giving us the Freedmen's Bank. But in return, they had us put our money in there and they loaned it all out to their friends and loved ones. And they depleted the money. They owe us that back, every dime of it. There are still constituents here to this day. Yes, children and recipients of those mothers and fathers who placed their hard-earned money after sharecropping in the Freedman Bank. We want it back, all of it back. Now, not to mention, after Jim Crow, you had a group of people who came right out of Jim Crow. And, you know, slavery never did end, because what we saw was our mothers and fathers sharecropping, thinking that they were going to keep those proceeds for themselves, but to only find out they were building up this agriculture for another generation, like for the immigrants, the white immigrants that came from Europe, that took over our mothers and fathers and ancestors' sharecrops. And the government made our African American families train these immigrants on how to sharecrop. They were even given loans, low interest loans, and they were also given our reparation, the money that we should have had. We want that back, every dime of it. You left the African American slaves on the side of the road with all of their belongings, trying to get in a safe place. You left them without housing, without homes. And you keep asking, how can you make this thing right? Well, right is right. It doesn't get any righter until you do right. Be a do-right man and a do-right woman, and quit telling everyone that you were not a part of slavery and that those who participated in slavery are dead. No, you're their offsprings. You're their lineage. You don't get off like that. If your mother and father would die tomorrow and leave a bill for the hospital, they would come after you for the balance of the bill due. There's a bill due for the African Americans right now. So we want to come after those who benefited from slavery and who prospered from slavery. And there are many people that benefited, and they're benefiting right now. Universities were built off the backs of slaves' earning that we couldn't even attend. Oh, shall I go on? There are tons of areas that we can talk about that nobody even mentioned. You see the rings that we wear and the diamonds? Oh, the money that the jewelers made off the backs of slaves. I can go on talking about all of the jewelers, and I won't mention any one in particular, but all of them benefited off the backs of the slaves. They must contribute. We have a serious problem about selective memory. Most of them choose not to remember what is benefited from the slaves. They choose not to remember. Now, we've had some hooligans on stage pretending to talk about slavery to compensate for the political parties to say, yes, we've talked about the decision, we've turned it over in our mind. However, we haven't come to any solution. To talk about one thing does not mean that you've addressed the issue. The issue is still on the table, and that back there that they had in that Congress session was not real. It was not real. I don't care how much preparation they made and how much of progress they made, it wasn't real. You had people acting out and performing. Mr. Hughes did a fantastic job of performing. Somebody suited him up real nice. Maybe he will get a reward at the end, but he sure in the heck did not represent African Americans in our need and our desire to ascertain reparation. He literally talked against it and said that we would be speaking on behalf of him, which he did not give us permission to do, for asking for reparation for him. Now, remember, he said that. Now, if reparation should be rewarded, then maybe he may be one of those who will go on the left-hand side and not even reap the benefit or want any of the profit. Now, this is not all about money. I want you to understand, we've got to get structured and structured as a nation. I'm calling for all those nation builders to gear up, because we have got to present a plan to ourselves and let each and every one of those conscious-minded people out there know we're capable of sitting down to the table and drawing our own conclusion. And number one, we have to dismantle, we must dismantle our judicial system for the benefit of ourselves and our own safety. We must create our own judicial system, and it must be one that is not geared up with guns. It's possible. Over in Europe, certain United Kingdoms do not have to carry pistols or guns, and they still govern their community and do it effectively. Why can't that be done here in the United States? Why are we hunted down? Instead of giving a traffic ticket to deal with our case in court, we're hunted down, pulled out of cars, jerked around, beaten, and shot dead over a traffic violation or issues that might be pertaining to a warrant. Those are not issues that are going to be extraneously affecting someone in a situation of immediate danger. Why are the policemen trained to function as if they are in combat? They are in combat with us. We have got to change that. That can no longer go on. You cannot take the tactics of a man that comes out of the military and put him on the street and ask them to govern the community. He is overtrained for the job. He cannot continue to go on like that and say that he felt somebody was pulling for their gun, because he should be trained to work out a situation and talk down an individual so that guns are never to be used, unless and if they're in danger of losing their own life. Now, as we build our nation, we have got to have nation builders. And nation builders, I know you're out there. You've been waiting for this opportunity for so long. And I know you want to see something change. And we have to look at doing it for ourselves. We cannot let a makeshift group, like we saw on television, accumulate themselves when their intention is not to fulfill the desire of presenting reparation, but only to suppress the situation and put a bandage on it. We do not want a bandage effect. We want this particular reparation to be looked at the seat of the cause and find out why we haven't presented something before now. So we're going to have able bodies, and we're not going to tell you that we're coming to integrate. Integration is over with. We have nothing to bring to the table. So therefore, there cannot be no integration, but just consumption. You will consume us and what little bit we have, and we cannot go along with any more integration. It doesn't work for us. The opportunity to separate is necessary. So the land must be divided amongst the African American, and our share of those southern states that were outlined for us when Abraham Lincoln was distributing out the portions of the land. We simply have to have those southern states, and they must be allocated for the African American, so that we will have a place to call our own, to separate, to better ourselves. But you must understand, we must have our own judicial system and our own police force. And number three, all of those individuals that are incarcerated now who've never had their day in court, they must have their day in court, and they must have a fair trial. Now, for those people who have been brought up on non criminal charges, only offenses of drug offenses, and they're not offenses where people have been killed, mutilated, those people must be let go. If you're going to legalize marijuana and then put half of the country in prison and then say it's okay, but now you are profiting from marijuana, from hemp, cannabis, no, that is not going to continue to go on. Someone has taken advantage of us African Americans. You have tried to reduce us down to 1/3 of a human being. We are not cattle, and we cannot be looked at as cattle, and we must gain respect and dignity. And that's what we're looking for, and that's why we must govern our own institutions and our own penal institution. We cannot let you depreciate us and act as if you're the God Almighty that's over us, and you're implementing everything that you could change your mind about and don't fulfill it and have another treaty that's broken. So therefore, we're going to set precedent. We're going to bring a solution to you, and we're not going to have you put your hands in it because you helped to create it. And 9 times out of 10, you will not distribute and correct it so that we can benefit from it. So I want you to understand that African Americans must learn to do for self. And you cannot do for self if you're busy wondering about what Mr. Enforcer thinks about you. We have too many African Americans with the slave man mentality. What's wrong, master? Is us sick? And taking the blame for the master not feeling good about our discussion. We will not be apologetically. We are unapologetically Black, and we will not apologize for having to bring reparation to the forefront. It should have been brought a long time ago. You have people that are stealing people's pension. Anyone that has lost their pension that's African American, it must be given back in 2 folds, because the Bible said so. When you pay back 70 times 7, but we're going to let you get away with 2-fold. If you stole someone's pension and you didn't allocate it for them and they're African American, by default, you must give them their pension. They changed the laws to fit their circumstances to keep your pool of money. I know this. And then they have the nerve to tell you to sign up and get membership with them so you can get their trinkets and their so-called benefits that you've already paid for. Now they want you to pay a membership and pay for them all over again. How dare them steal someone's pension? knowing that they need their pension for retirement. How dare them try to change the rules and the laws and to have the mitigating gall to exclude those people from their share of the pot. Well, you sweeten the pot just for us. We're going to get our share. Anyone that was a part of the freedmen and can prove the documentation of their ancestors will be given a bank account with whatever amount of money their parents put in plus interest. Okay? When someone stole your pension and you finally get your pension back, you're supposed to get it back with interest. And those pension owners out there that are African American must be given their pensions back. See, you ripped us off. And then you try to say, well, I went to college and got my education. How come she can't pull herself up by the bootstrap? It's because you have been given all these incentives to be a white supremacist. You've been given these add-ons, and not to mention the redlining for homes where you could not stay and you could not sell your property back because they redline you. I know what it feels like to have a piece of property that you cannot sell back because they've redlined you. That is illegal, and all those who lost property, who were losing their homes to a foreclosure or redlining, shall be given access to the keys to a new home to start all over. And every African American that is without ownership of a home will be given not only the land, but a house on the land. Okay, you got these things out there, you're getting ready to sell them. Unfortunately, you're going to have to give them away to the rightful owner because you stole from their parents and their ancestors and their grandparents. So now you must fit the bill and take care of it. And you got people mumbling about what should be rightfully ours and why we shouldn't be the recipient because our ancestors are dead and gone. No, there are pension recipients right now from the railroad that are reaping the benefit of their lost loved ones through widows' survival and through children's survival from the railroad, and they're getting their pensions right now, and those people are dead and gone. We are paying recipients from the Civil War, the mothers and the children who recipients of these war fighters, and they're getting the benefit. Why is it that we can't understand that when it comes to African American, but yet we can hand out not only the flag, but money to go with it and say, God bless you, we will take care of you the rest of your life? You're going to have to do it for the African Americans too, because you have ripped us off to the utmost degree, and you have taken money from us, and you have nodded and winked your eye as if you've never done anything to us. But we have got to tell our story and wag our own tails. And African Americans, don't be dismayed as to what you've seen on TV during June 15th. Juneteenth was a disaster for them to go on television and pretend that they're working things out with us, to only find out that they are making a mockery of reparation. And we're not going to handle it sitting down. We are going to do our due diligence to research this thing, and it's not going to bypass HR 40. We're going to make sure that it takes precedence for HR 40. So it will be a discussion on the table that we can work with and come to some degree of conclusion, and not just talk about the topic over and over again, but to do something effective and be productive in producing something that will correct the problem. A number of us don't think we deserve reparation. We don't even believe that our ancestors strived hard enough so that they could be a recipient of the All-American Dream. But we know that there are a number of us who will never come close to the All-American Dream because they've made sure that we are on fixed incomes, and they made sure that we have not only gone on fixed income, but they made sure that we won't gather unto our own our rightful pensions like we should have to live and have a quality of life. How dare them have net worths over $200,000 a year when some of us are barely breaking even to get 20 to $50,000 a year. And African Americans, don't tell me, but I know you are hardworking individuals and you put the energy out there, and God must stand behind you to give you the sources back. It's not anything that the Mr. Enforcer decides. God is responsible for us. If God has asked us to submit ourselves to Him and abide in Him, then we must ask God to abide in His word and watch over His word to perfect it. And when I say that, I mean if He's made promises to us and the promises are yea and not nay, He must watch over His word to perfect it. Because He did say in His word that we can command Him. We can command God to do what He said He's going to do and to watch over His word to perfect it. But we've got a number of people that are shouting down reparation because they don't understand. They don't understand that through institutions, you have lost the privileges of the legacies that your mothers and fathers would have left behind for you. You have lost the opportunity to be born with a silver spoon in your mouth because someone has robbed you of your legacy. Someone has taken advantage of all of the opportunities that you might have had where you could have set up a business from your mother's and your grandparents' legacy and been able to set up institutions in your family's name. Now you're looking at trying to sit down with uh, lawyers and compliance people who actually help with retirement. Now you're sitting down looking at retirement, and it's a disaster because they have ripped you off of your property and they have stole your pension to make sure you don't have anything left to live for. Well, I'm telling you, look alive, African American. You don't have to die with high blood pressure. And you sure don't have to go out of here with sugar to diabetes because we've got that lit. We got that down, locked down. We now know that that was a whole episode to keep you down and to weaken your body so that they can keep you paying for prescriptions and keep you coming to the doctor's office, paying their bills for their trips and their excursion trips. And knowing that once you are told that you have been vexed with this condition, that you think that you're on a path for death. You're not on a path for death. And I want you to understand that. When you get this verdict, get a second opinion. You're entitled to it. Don't ever get a cancer diagnosis without a second opinion because sometimes the first diagnosis could be wrong. It could be. And then you could substantiate that with your second diagnosis. People are trying to get rid of African Americans by any means necessary because they want to rob them of the little assets that they have left. Not to mention that they've stolen from their ancestors. And now uh, we look at this thing called slavery, and we feel sad about ourselves and what our family's gone through. Don't feel sad because you might have been a victim, but you don't have to continue to be victimized. And slavery has not ended. The victimization still keeps going on through the massive imprisonment, through the drive-by shootings, through the killing of the black man until the killing of black men is equal to that of white men. We will not stop our, intentions to have a nation. We will keep pressing on to be able to govern ourselves and have our own police force and have our own judicial system. We know that this is the right thing to do, because for people that don't love you and that want to chasten you and secure you, they only want death for you. They have not made it up in their mind that you're human and that you're more than 3/5 of a man. So you have got to make it up in your your mind, black man, that you're not going to look at yourself in the mirror and put each other to death because you've internalized hatred. You're going to look the other way, because our day will come when we will become a nation and we will govern ourselves and other people as well. We are the older family. We are the elders, and we have been taxed with the responsibility to govern. And we cannot govern if we are on our backs. We must get up off our backs and govern our institutions like we've been trained to do. We cannot let someone who's of lesser intelligence and someone who is a child in our eyesight govern our institutions and bring down heresy upon us while they crush our young men in the streets and bash their heads out. Well, we will not allow it anymore because we know better. And the only reason you're reigning and doing all these things is we permitted it. And God, if you are for us, you must stand for us. And if we are the ones who love you and praise you and stood all in the courtyard and call the people to pray, then we are worshiping you, God, and representing you, and you must, it says, command you me. We are commanding you to represent us, that no hurt, harm, or danger comes to us, and that we're provided for, and everything that was taken for us, the riches of the wicked will be laid up for the just. And we're the just today. We have a soul and a spirit, and God didn't make everyone with the soul. Check it out. The Bible will back me up on that. But you must understand that this thing has to come to an end. That charade that was on TV with Johnny Glover and with Hughes and with Coke, all of those guys were giving us a show. Thank you for the live entertainment, but the real show must go on now. This is the real deal with laying out the premises for the perspectives for us to have a nation. And with us having a nation, all other things such as lucrative funds and money will be added. We won't have to ask you for filthy lucre because we are a nation. We're entitled to it. You'll have to hand it over, hands down. But we're not going to toll with you. And there's no weapons of ours that are carnal. We do not deal with carnal weapons. And pretty soon you're going to know that our words are powerful like a two-edged sword. They're going to be cut going in and cut coming out. So as we speak, we will speak with truth and urgency. And those who oppose us, you won't have the strength to stand, because you cannot stop a people whose time has come. And our time has come. With the HR 40 behind us, they're waiting for us to lay out a real plan. Well, HR 40, here's a real plan. You get a group of people that want a nation. They want to be perceived as a nation. And we are not a people without a continent. We are connected to Africa. We want dual citizenship with our country in Africa and here in America. We want access to it so we can go and come as we please. You have been holding us captive, and you have been going on with slavery. Slavery has never ended. We are calling slavery on the truce. All men that are falsely locked up in prison must be released. And those who have not had their day in court must be given their day in court. This system has run amok long enough. And we have been here like children waiting to see what your next move is. Well, we are going to be on the defense side and we are going to make the next move. And we must make the next move. We cannot wait for them to bring it to us. We got to bring the fight to them. And when we bring the fight to them, they know we mean business. And that charade that's been on TV that has been talking out of their mind about stupid nonsense things, about us not being able to represent them and how they don't believe that we're owed anything, you're foolish. We have been owed something because this thing called slavery has continued. Even to the 21st century, they have still been picking up people that didn't know the slavery was over, and they call that peony. And in the 21st century, there were people still locked up in these slave owners' home doing their biddings and didn't know slavery was over because they had become ignorant because they were not allowed to read. You took away our ability to read. You took away our identity and made us give up our names. We want our names back. We want to be able to embrace our African names. You stripped us of everything. There was no other people on this earth that was stripped from our heritage like we were. They may have been taken and moved to one other place, but they were not stripped of their names and their ability to learn to read and have heritage and have a culture. So now we want our nation so we can prove to you that we're more than 3/5 of a human being and that we're one of the divine ones. And God has set us to be the beloved one so that everything that you called us and the way you scorned us, we will be more than that. And you will be able to be shamed for how you've treated us and the poor deeds that you've done to us and how you've broken down our families. You've taken the mothers away from their children and you ripped the husband out of the household. You have destroyed or attempted to destroy the family, but we're building back up again. So we want some institutions set aside for our families, not to take our children away from us out of our home. And now you lead them into molestation and rape, and you do a worse job than the actual natural born mother. No, you can't keep taking our mothers' children away, causing them to go on drugs and causing them to go out of their mind. You must give their children back. And you're holding them now. And all of those people that are doing harm to the children, I'm warning you, if you do any harm to the children out there, through molestation, selling them for their organs, killing them, God itself is going to part the sky and come after you. And the God I serve is a mighty God. And I don't serve God just to be serving him. I want some benefits. And God said that he could cause us to demand him. And I'm commanding God that comes against me and my house. Because as long as I live, me and my house will serve the Lord. And if you come up after me, wanting to do anything to me, woe unto you. Woe unto you, because I'm an ancestor's child. And the ancestors came here to this earth with me. And they will support me. And they will stand with me. And they will fight for me all the way to the portals of hell or heaven and back. So I mean what I'm saying, and I'm saying what I mean. So African Americans, it's time to get up. It's time to get up. It's nation time. It's time for you to create that nation and come together on one accord because we got work to do. And that means during this episode, Omi Inka is telling you that we must fight for our reparation and bring the fight to them and demand our reparation. We're not giving them anything or asking them for anything. We are the ones perpetuating this particular topic of reparation. Nobody else is going to call a meeting for us to talk about reparation. We are going to demand reparation. And we're going to put our nations together so you know we mean what we say. We want our nations built. We want our land. and we want our 40 acres and a mule. So we about the business of building nations. So you know it. Thank you very much for your time, for this nation time. Good evening.